Hi, this is Dave Belsky, your host of the Sunset Session, brought to you by FlowerHire. Tonight we have two guests, Ryan Cron and Bryant Bowens from JC Rad Distribution and Cronja Culture. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having.
Thank you. It's definitely a pleasure.
Well, I'm excited to talk to both of you. You have a very unique entrepreneurial journey into cannabis. First, I want to mention that we did summons the sunset. It's been cloudy all day here, but finally came out just in time for the end, which is perfect. So, JC Rad Distribution, it's a full service distribution based in downtown Los Angeles that does packaging and processing of bulk flower, as well as statewide last mile transportation and direct sales of brands into retail.
Yep, that pretty much sums it up.
Did I get that right?
On the money.
Yeah.
On the money?
Social equity operator.
We are also Tier 1 social equity in the LA program. And we've been licensed for about 2 years now and doing business most of that time.
Well, we'll talk more about the LA social equity program a bit later, but a lot to unpack there. And Cronja Culture, we have some of it here.
Hey.
Talk to me about Cronja Culture. I know something you guys have been working on, and obviously just this week, I think, dropping your indoor flower at Sweet Flower and some other fine retailers. So talk to me about Cronja Culture.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that Bryant and I have been actually working on for at least, I want to say five plus years, really. Really started as an accessory company, as an idea that we had while we were working, working at PAX, because we both worked at PAX and Jewel for a while. And we were running around basically with all these different, vaporizers and things that we were using to also smoke, and we were hitting all these events and these concerts, and just none of it was organized. And so this is how we started thinking about doing like some kind of carry case, something to travel with that would keep everything organized. And then it led into, also like creating this tray, this, foldable, collapsible kind of, portable tray that you can take with you on the go and roll up with. A lot of that was happening at the same time the Complex Con was going down for the first time, and we were all standing around rolling blunts in our hands, and I was like, what are we doing, man? So that's how
there has to be something better.
That's how it came about. And it was like, we started just making things, for ourselves, and, things that would make sense for us to carry around, and, going off of our style and our vibe and what we've been into, to try to, create something. And it just turned into something that was like an accessory line at first. It helped us kind of get into, some of the dispensaries that we worked with on the PAX side, like Dispensary 33 was one of our first partners and stockists in this. We've done some, couple collabs with them even recently. So, and that just helped us kind of get into the game a little bit, just get your foot in the door with that.
So Cronja is a Black and veteran-owned accessory and now flower brand.
Right. Yeah, I'm a Marine Corps veteran. Served in Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. And Bryant and I, started this, and we've been the majority owners of Cronja Culture. And then about a year ago, we brought on some more partners to help us expand and grow. And we brought on, longtime friend GLC and partner there, and that's, brings a whole, music aspect and everything, to our brand and to our company. And also working with Mike G, who runs, the We Travel Food blog and brand there. He's, heavily involved in the social equity programs and licensing in Illinois and Chicago, and actually across the country now. So, Ozzy's and Shezzy, actually, passed away about a year ago almost now, right after we kind of did the deal and wanted to, kind of collaborate with them here. They're from LA here locally. Doing a lot in the fashion world and the party and event world, and we wanted to really do some things there, and so we're still working with Ozzy and of course trying to keep Shezzy alive as well, man, in our memories and what we do with the brand here, and thinking about what he contributed in the beginning too. So and now we're ready to launch some flower behind that, which is ultimately what our goals were. I mean, after a while,
launching a THC brand in California is not easy. Even harder to launch a culturally relevant brand, and I applaud the work you guys are doing in that department.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I mean, it's a huge story to get to this point. Let's take a step back here. You guys are both from one of the few places that I believe does not have a medical or recreational cannabis program still.
Right, and won't for a while.
I know, for a while. But shout out to Indiana. But shout out to Indiana. Shout out to Indiana.
That's right.
So, hello. You guys have known each other for 15 years?
No, more like
you would
8,
think so.
8, 9. Yeah.
2014.
Yeah,
so you guys complete each other's sentences. I thought it was
so right? We've been working together.
We connected in 2014, actually through non-cannabis related, but I guess it went back full circle. But we ended up going into the music route. So a lot of people don't know that my brother right here actually has a really awesome talent in regards to his pen game. So, from time to time, my guy would, just really rip it on the mic. And, a good buddy of ours by the name of Cody actually connected us too. He's also from Indiana.
Because you made some very unique beats.
Yes, indeed. Well, I tried to dabble a little bit, that's subjective. So, luckily, Ryan was one of the few that said,
he saw the talent.
Yeah. He did. Raw talent was like, yo, this is actually cool. So, to, have someone, from afar to, connect with, something that I would create like literally in the basement, and I was like, what, I got to rock with my guys. So we end up, recording a track, and then we end up, coming out with the full EP, and really came out great. But, one of those highlighted tracks that really, caught some traction was the song, the GLC collab that we had, Secret Garden. And it
talking about cannabis.
Yes, indeed. And that's where everything I think that was the seed that was planted. Where the bro was mentioning things that I didn't even know at the time, but it connected, and full circle again, GLC being into the mix, which is now our partner, so I'm very excited to see where we originally started from to now, and everything in between, from working with Pax and Jewel, which I'm sure we might get into. But.
Yeah, well, we'll just go right there. So like you got hired by Pax first, right? And Pax at the time was like 50, 60 employees, and was still like doing what the handheld like flower vaporizers, like the first generation ones, and we're just coming out with their the Nixie product, Jewel.
Right.
It was all under one thing. This is what, 2015.
Yeah, it was 2015. What actually kicked that off was it was when Colorado first had recreational dispensaries kind of go live. And so in January, I took like a guy's trip out to Denver to see a homie out there, and my guy Scott that's now working at Gold Flora and helped us build Cronja distribution back in the day too. So that's when I went out there, and I was like, I gotta get into this industry. And I was already doing distribution, but I was doing consumer electronics distribution and working with DirecTV, authorized retailers and things like that. So, I kind of made a big leap. I was living in Atlanta, and I just said, man, I'm going to find some way, to get into this industry, even living in Atlanta, right? Through ancillary products or whatever I needed to do. And that's how I found Pax actually, and they were hiring on LinkedIn or whatever. And so I applied, became a territory sales manager there. And then, quickly within like 6 months, I was moving up to Chicago to become the division sales manager. That's when I reached back out to Bryant, just knowing what he's done, and outside of just producing and making music, and he was like the first one to bring Wiz Khalifa down to Evansville. Like he was doing a lot of stuff,
producing sick beats and getting vaporizers into head shops. But you work well together as a team.
Yeah,
like each other, you trust each other, and like there was a cohesion and a synergy that like when you got the call, you were like, this is my man, I'm in.
Well, I mean, to even, put more context into it as well, me and the bro, we end up building a really great rapport. And, every time he was in Chicago, one thing Pax would have these really cool events that they would throw.
And like,
exactly. But it actually fell into, one of my true passions and love is the art. So for, see some of those events kind of merge together, I really loved, seeing what Pax was doing. And, with me being, a consumer of cannabis, I'm like, oh, this is, perfect. And when the opportunity came, and as you mentioned, once the call was hit, I definitely, took on to that. And, obviously it wasn't easy for me. One thing I respect about bro is, he's, very transparent. He keeps it up front. At the time, I was actually, finishing my MBA. So with that, I just knew school and throwing events. So when it came to actual sales, I really didn't have that experience. But, Ryan, seen something in me that, I didn't even see in myself at the time. But, I do know that, very motivated, very persistent, go-getter, I would say, coming from, the Midwest, we all have that mentality. So, he said, what, this is something that I can work with, and I can mold, and I can nurture, and, I can train this. So, like I said, for Ryan to, have that, that vision, we're here today.
Well, I mean, the art comes through in the packaging. It's beautiful, it's simple, but it's very, very nice design. And so working together in the cannabis world, but ancillary, making a ton of connections in the industry, learning kind of how the plant touching side of it works. You're running, 18 states of distribution for Pax and eventually Juul, and you make the decision to leave. The company got big. You're on the nicotine side, and probably not as rewarding as the THC side.
Yeah, I mean, basically it was the end of 2017. I was living in LA at this time, running at that point like a 32 state territory, everything except for like the Northeast basically. And I was traveling a lot. I was doing a lot on the tobacco distribution side, things like that. And then all around me, I'm seeing all of this, happening around cannabis. And, we got separated a bit from the PAX side of things, and we, eventually split the companies as well, right? So, at that point, man, I was like, man, I'd rather, take a bit of a risk here and do something on my own. And so that's when I kind of started doing more of a sales consulting agency. I ran under the name Cronja and Cronja Distribution. After I, within a couple months, I was like, man, I'm going to have to get a license to be able to control the end experience, for the retailers and be able to actually, do all of this from beginning to end in the way that I would do this in other industries. Right. And so that's what set me on that path of trying to go through licensing, trying to, lock down a property in downtown LA and go through that whole process. The Prop 215 era of. Right. When we first started, my guy Scott helped me, build this from the very beginning. Like he was, living in our warehouse almost. Like, I actually found him. It's a funny story. I found him in Tijuana and stuff, living in an Airbnb, and just convinced him to come along for the ride with me instead.
He'll come back.
So yeah, now he's the operations manager over at Gold Flora. Probably one of the most well-versed people I know in this industry and operations now. I mean, just tons of experience. So,
but I think that what you talk about, like the lens of a distributor, like controlling your customer experience by controlling the retail relationship and delivering consistency there, right? Like that's something that there's a lot of brands in California that rely on partners for distro and even for contract manufacturing that can't control their customer experience. So you saw like a way that you knew how to control that experience, do it in a replicable way, build trust with your brands, create a platform for them.
Right.
And obviously as a distro, you build a ton of relationships that, you've now had for 5 years of trust.
Yeah, I mean, some of the people that you work with 4 or 5 years ago ended up, maybe at different companies, but they're still in the same industry. They're still, they've grown since you've last seen them too. And, it's great to see everybody kind of grow, after being in the industry for a while, and also be in different parts of the industry where it's like, I need some help over here. So,
right.
What's up?
People have had to kind of, not all of them, most of them that are still around, still viable, are really focused in a lane.
Right.
And are doing something really well as opposed to trying to do everything for everybody, which requires lots of capital and time. And so, you guys came up with this idea when you were working together. You left and actually went to go work for an MSO for a period of time running national sales. You ended up going to another distributor for a while, but we're still trying to build Cronja Culture and obviously figuring out what to do with this distribution property downtown LA that was viable in the medical days, but now LA wasn't issuing licenses, and but eventually, but now you guys are working together again. You have been for a year, right? Like when did you move out to LA to join forces with
So originally, I just moved back, but I would say, in the inception stage of JC Rad, that was January 2020. So I was here for, the first 8 months of that year, just, helping build out the company. Right. And it was an interesting time, really jumping in here. So we didn't have any retail partners, no brand partners really to work with, and we didn't have a huge staff.
And you had some relationships.
Yeah, we had relationships.
You weren't licensed until then, so they had to start again from scratch and see who was still around in this recreational regime.
We had to start from scratch.
Well, Bryant was still, doing some of the, like he went to work for another company that was running sales teams for, nicotine distribution still, those kind of products. And actually, so I was trying to build this Cronja distribution here in LA. And then once it became kind of apparent that those licenses, the applications weren't even going to be accepted for nobody knew, just an indefinite period of time. That's when we basically said, man, our what we're doing here in LA is not going to work, without knowing when we're going to get a license, right? And at the same time, it made sense to kind of look outside of that and see, who else we could partner with that had something going as well. And that's when we partnered with Shelf Life Distributing. And this was probably May of 2018, so shortly after licensing began. And I stayed there through the transition. So we had built, I take the same processes and things that and the way that I've built sales teams, over the last 15 years at other companies and other industries, applied that, there as well. Started to build out that whole, group there. And then at the end of the year, essentially that, that transition was over, and they went on to do their thing and get acquired by Gold Flora, which they're a part of now. And that's when I went to work with Parallel Sotera Wellness and took the national sales director job there. So in the background, it was just keeping this building that wasn't a part of any other deal, that just was sitting there empty, just alive. Yeah, it was zoned. I had a 5-year lease on it, so there's that.
And you ended up, in order to get the license to qualify for the social equity license as a social equity distribution license.
Right.
Like, talk to me about how you finally put those pieces together with that property.
Right. That's actually a funny story too. Is that I used to distribute for a brand called Humble Extracts, not Humboldt, but Humble Extracts. And they were local here in LA,
Stay humble.
Yeah, exactly. So I used to work with them, and I used to distribute some of their products for them and whatnot, and I stayed in touch. And their longtime friend ended up qualifying for the social equity program in LA. He used to run delivery services and things like that. So that was the initial intent, was to get a delivery service license as well. And they had opened it up at one point where you could get the license before you had the building. And that was new, right? Nobody else could do that. That's why I was sitting there paying rent forever on this building. So one day I was like, hey, I'd love for someone to be able to use this building. I'd love to be able to help somebody build their business. And, obviously I'm working and doing other things, but, I can certainly, help, kind of stand this business up. And so that's where we came together. They had a license, I had the building and some of the know-how, and so we got together and then raised a small amount of capital and went through the state licensing process as well, because we were approved locally, but not, through the state. So it wasn't until almost the end of 2019 that we actually got the distribution license for JC Rad, and I was still working other jobs and whatnot. So then come 2020, at this point I'd actually, I think, moved on from Parallel and no, maybe we were still at Parallel then, but we went and brought Bryant out to be, to kind of head up the retail sales. And, he said, hey, I just want to learn, the business from beginning to end, right? Metric, everything, inventory, he was delivering orders, like everything.
And to the point, yeah, indeed.
Counting cash, all of it.
And bro mentioned it as well too, like I mentioned earlier, the full transparency with bro. I'm coming from working with this, booming startup company, with Jewel. And I was just thinking that it was transferable, easily getting into the cannabis space. So I'm like, I can be a sales director and this and this and this. And bro was like, nah, bro, you need to actually
less barriers to get to customers.
Yeah, indeed. And then, I had a little experience, but it was more so on the ancillary side with packs, and I felt as if, that warranted me having, something that I didn't deserve at the time. And with bro, he said, you can earn that role, but you need to come to the Mecca, which is out here. And hence, me jumping into the space in 2020.
So we convinced him to come out. It's 2020.
Oh, we can talk about the
May. No, March.
Oh, no, March. I came here in January of 2020.
Oh yeah.
Mind you, we didn't have any retail partners.
Downtown is bustling now.
So we end up finding our brand partner that we still work with today on a strategic level right around that time, and then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So
he's trying to meet new buyers for the first time while everybody else is working from home.
Right.
And he's out there catching people on their smoke break in the alley.
Yeah, no, indeed. But at the end of the day, it was. And
well, if you already had business, that's one thing. But when you're trying to launch something new, you're trying to establish new business contacts.
Like, no one wants to meet anyone in person because we're all strangers.
And I think that in the midst of chaos, there's always opportunity. So I believe with us, not really having all of the resources and tools, just pure Midwest grit. I think we started to be, this is really a real deal. Yes, indeed. And I think that we end up, getting creative. And, I'll have to say that, bro was, a visionary in regards to being able to, be a proper playmaker, just knowing what the current landscape was. Him knowing that, there were other brands that were, letting go or cutting hours with, some of their reps as well. So, we had connections. I'm sure you can expound on that, but he ended up creating this Avengers team of individuals. And I think that's when it started to ramp up once, cannabis was considered essential during that time. But, bro can expound, but.
Well, you need, teams are everything in any industry, especially cannabis. Being able to work well, trust each other, and actually have people that gravitate towards different parts of an operation and do those things well and bring those skills and their talent to solving pieces of a puzzle, right? And like, you know, I don't want to fast forward from that because COVID is still happening, but you know, we're acting like it isn't. The idea of like where the business is now, as you know, it has grown since that point. It was very rocky. It was a crazy time to start, but this has been a growth year. A lot of things have happened in a positive momentum in 2021, right?
Oh yeah.
But for the distro business, JC Red, you guys are doing a lot of like obviously last mile distro, but also bulk flower like processing and serving for delivery companies and retailers for house brands, any brand that needs a lot of flour. And what's happened since July is the price of flour has gone dramatically down by like a third of what it was or less in California. And you know, how has that affected like the idea of buying and selling bulk? Is that just like there's just less margin to go around because the price starts less? Like how has that affected?
Yeah, that comes back to your relationships again and working with the cultivators that you source from, you know, and trying to, you know, as quickly as possible relay these kind of price drops. I mean, what's just been, you know, crazy the last couple months has been like in a week the price will drop. You know,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like just it's a hot potato situation, you know, especially
some like group in, I don't know, Carpinteria or somewhere like that that has like 40,000 pounds of smalls to get rid of it.
Like we've mitigated some of that risk by focusing a lot on premium indoor and trying to get strains that, you know, our partner Doug and our partners Alexis and Jason, like they're very good at this, right? They come from the 215 world, like they have these relationships, you know, been doing this for a long time and are connoisseurs in this, right? So they can really suss out the flower quality and what price it's supposed to be, right? Like a Doug is a great buyer, right? Like I say, like you would come in here and drive that price down. I was like, if you like something, that's a great thing, you know. But no, it's really is about that, like being very particular about what we're deciding to purchase and how long we hold things, and working with our partners to let them know when the prices are changing, you know, and having that trust with them that we're not just trying to get like a better margin. We're really just trying to help everybody keep things moving.
Moving forward. I mean, everyone's taking a hit equally as what's going on our end. Like we're doing this together. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, and the more that we do that, you know, the other thing is like you can try to use every revenue stream you can with your distribution license or manufacturing license, because they're going to help hedge the bet a little bit against each other. So when retail's up, bulk's down, you know, some things are helping us, right?
But now the business is growing. Like, talk to me about like, you know, we were chatting earlier about this, the idea of like being a social equity licensed distribution business that is actually doing well and EBITDA positive, like finding growth capital based on the structure of the license is challenging. Like the way that there's no, in terms of the regulations for all of these, the social equity licenses, whether it's retail, whether it's distro, there is no clause around how do you exit, like how do you sell or how do you raise capital in a way that doesn't penalize the social equity founder, right? Like, so talk to me about like that process for you as you build this, like, you know, because we've talked a lot about the challenges of actually getting Los Angeles City to issue retail licenses for people that have been holding property forever and are, you know, and are financially ruined because of that, but not about like how actually opening one of these businesses, you're hamstrung on how big you can get.
Yeah, basically, you know, with the tight margins that are out there, especially in distribution, you know, wholesale distribution, and then you're talking, you know, 2% gross receipts tax for LA, you know, right off, no matter what your margin is, right? You're still paying 2% of the total, you know, revenues to them. And of course 280E, you know, federal taxes. So all of that crushes your margin first and foremost, right? And then you've got all these extra expenses through accounting and legal and everything to keep you compliant and what you need to do there. Security, you know, we had to break in already this year, you know, and we had to.
That's crazy. What's happening in the state right now.
Got to beef up security. Got to do all that kind of stuff, right? So all of this is known, right? What's tough though is that whenever you're tier 1 social equity in LA, at least, because you know there's different programs across the state, but that means that our partner Jason owns 51% of the company. It's great. We all agreed to that. It's awesome. Like let's do this, right? We come on as the other 49% owners. We actually put in money as well, like ourselves personally. Then we go out and raise a little bit of money from friends and family, mostly people that have worked with us in the past, you know, and people that are investing in us, right? Right, exactly. And understanding that when we, you know, raise a couple $100,000 here and there, that's one thing, right? But if we wanted to really go and add buildings and vehicles and really expand and have full service distribution across the entire state and do every bit of it ourselves, we need a lot more money. So in order to do that, though, what happens is we've grown the value of this business already with very little investment money because we're all being the operators ourselves, right? And that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? As this value keeps going up, right? We also, if we go to raise more money, then we have to then issue every time shares to our 51% owner, Jason, to keep him from being diluted. And it's like, okay, great, he's getting more shares, more value. Well, it's taxable, so that gives him, now tax implications that he has every single year that we have to try to, if that becomes bigger and bigger and bigger for a single person, that's, a lot of tax implications, in other words, right, that we might have to help with.
Especially for a business that is barely profitable, if not, because it's in cannabis and it's taxed. Right. It's not like you guys, you're running a business, revenues are growing, but it's not like you're saving for a kid's college fund right now.
I say that, for a business like this, what they've done is made it so that, you're right, like you don't want to get too big, right? Because, without getting strategically acquired, in other words, right? And right now they haven't necessarily written the rules for how to do that, right? They say, we've been in contact, with the local, agencies and whatnot, saying, hey, we're going to write this. We're going to, but it's not written in stone. So as we get into bigger conversations, and already within 2 years of operating, we basically tripled our business from 2020 to 2021, right? And we're in, sold to a couple hundred dispensaries this year. Obviously have 25 to 30 accounts that we're doing, bulk sales and co-packing for and things like that. Margins are decent, EBITDA positive, as I mentioned to you before. And really, like, the challenge then is just, you're EBITDA positive, but then you're going in the hole on your federal, gross, cultivation taxes, interest for financing and things like that. So if it was any other business, it'd be a profitable business already, I'm really proud of what we built, and any other, especially when you come from working at bigger companies with hundreds of billions of dollars to work with and, having bigger budgets to accomplish things with and scale quicker.
Investor funny money.
It's like, to come back to the ground level and, be building this from, literally the ground up, with very few investment dollars to work with. We've just been able to be very resourceful, and the fact that everybody's been doing this for a while, super helps out. And just managing these partnerships that we have, knowing that we can't do it all ourselves, right? We're really good at sales, and we're really good at strategic sales, because that's our background. That's what we've done. And our partners are really good at operations, and they're really good at sourcing. And once we get this delivery service license up, that's another opportunity for us to, have some shared costs in that building with an additional higher margin revenue stream.
Revenue stream, exactly.
Yeah.
So not to pivoting to the Cronja, to the flower brand here. What has been the receptiveness to the market of this brand? Because when you started, Cronja Culture, it was originally around the accessories and using things that smokers would get and want to use.
Right.
But, launching an indoor flower brand, like, when was the moment where, like, I think we should go into plant touching, and, what has been the market's response to it?
Yeah.
From buyers at retail.
You want to jump into it?
I mean, I think in the back of our mind, we always wanted to do something like this, but it seems like impossible in the beginning, of how am I gonna launch a brand of my own, and which market do you do that in, and
Right.
where's the wholesale opportunity even exist?
Entrepreneurs in cannabis ask all the time.
Right, and where are you going to get the most, following, right? And what are you trying to accomplish? Market share, or are you actually trying to, make a margin on this, right? So we essentially said to ourselves, like, especially after, working at Parallel and doing some things with licensing brands and negotiating different, deals that way across multiple state lines, it becomes apparent that, especially for a state like California, that you're either gonna buy into the supply chain somehow, or you're gonna plan on having little to no margin or negative margins for a while you're working and paying every toll along the way in the supply chain to get to market, right? So to some folks that's worth it or whatnot. For us, we felt like we just built out we rebuild distribution channels that we've built before, and essentially line ourselves up by buying and selling other people's products, and then eventually being able to introduce our own products, right? And in that, we learn and find the gaps in people's menus, and where, and pricing, and where we can, actually compete, right? And have some differentiators instead of trying to launch with the exact same thing that everybody else has, right? And that's hard to do in the flower category, of course, right?
So what are the major differentiators of the Cronja flower brand?
Well, here's the thing, right, is that, we work with, our main, brand that we sell into the dispensaries is Next Green Wave. They're a cultivator, indoor cultivator out of Coalinga. And they do a great job growing amazing flower and consistency and that sort of thing. And we do a good job of, selling their products into stores. But as a cultivator brand, you still basically have what you're growing, and your goal is to sell everything that you're growing, right?
Into quarters or pre-rolls or eighths.
Or into bulk if you have to, whatever the case may be. And that's just the way that it is. There's pros and cons to that. There's advantages to that, of course, and consistency and quality and things like that. But there's also disadvantages because you're stuck having to sell whatever comes out of that harvest, even if it's not great. You can choose to put some in a brand and choose to sell some off in bulk. I think the advantage we have as a distributor that's constantly buying and selling from multiple, grows and getting consistent flower that way and consistent strains that other people don't have as much of, or, not necessarily that they're exclusive, but there's just something that not everybody has, right? And it lets us kind of cherry pick the best flower that we have in our facility at any given time, right? So one of the things that we decided to launch with is the indoor smalls. Instead of going straight at the 3.5 gram category of bigs and premium, because we're a premium cannabis brand, right? We decided to kind of do the premium indoor smalls instead. I saw a gap in the menu, an advantage in pricing in the bulk side, right? That we see that about a 30% discount at retail, but more like a 50% discount at wholesale. So we find margin in there easier than the 3.5 Mylars, right? But also we're not going head to head right away with all the other cultivator brands and other big brands that have already established themselves. They do smalls too, and there's an eighths and they're in jars and different things like that. But for us, like hitting high testing THC with great nose on the flower, great structure, like I said, hand picking the flower that we want to go in these Mylars, packaging them on site and getting them to retail so they're packaged very fresh. And we decided to go with Mylars just because that keeps the flower fresher than most of the jars out there for us. And this works because it's on the go, and it's right in line with what we do with our trays, right? Is that in theory here, you should be able to take your tray out, fold it up, take one of these with you, and a couple Dutchies or whatever you roll with, and throw that in your back pocket and you're on your way. And that's the whole point of kind of making this into a full experience of using the trays with the flower. I mean, we've got 3.5 Mylars with strains that are more exclusive and limited down. That's Q1, buddy. Q1. Hang tight. Let me secure my shelf space first, right? And then we'll roll out the hot shit, right? But right now, this is hitting a price point that not everybody can hit. That's going to have quality that not everybody can hit for that price point. And we actually put some time and energy into the packaging and obviously the brand and the meaning behind that, right? And I think that so far, a lot of the folks out there we've been talking to in the retail channels have resonated with that. Customers that resonates with, and it gives a little bit more meaning. I mean, we can all get to the point where flower is going to be similar in quality, similar in price point, but then it becomes about what brand speaks to you and what that company's doing that makes you feel like you want to work and buy them.
You have an opportunity there. Well, it's an authentic story. You have the music and entertainment ownership of it. You have Black and veteran-owned brand. Mm-hmm. Like this is it's fantastic. I can't wait. It's going to be in hundreds of shops. You're going to struggle to keep up with orders 3 months from now, gentlemen.
That's the goal.
Last thing to end with, like back to Midwest, Illinois. Like you guys, what are you launching in Illinois? What is Cronja launching in Illinois right now?
Good question. $1 million question. Yes, indeed. So, originally our concept, it was a proof of concept, getting the actual rolling trays, and to see that, be successful in that space. For us to see that over the years, we knew that we were onto something. Hence us, jumping into the space here with the flower. With that, we actually, to your point, land and expand here, and this is the mecca. So, once we're able to kind of prove the concept and to really establish ourselves, within, the certain SKUs that we have, jumping into, the 7 gram smalls, obviously we're going to expand out. I believe that gives us a lot of leverage to, really work with the partners that we have currently in the Illinois market with the rolling trays that we have. And luckily for us, we've been able to really connect with some really great MSOs, some really great partners that really believes in, not only, the brand, but the story as a whole. So they want to see us win, more than anything. Right. So I believe that once we're successful here, which that will happen, we will start to see, you'll start to see some flower in the state of Illinois. So we're working, it's pending.
That can do it,
yes,
right?
Indeed.
Yeah, it becomes about this, like is picking the states that actually have a wholesale market first, right? And a reason for anybody that's growing flower right now to actually want to license a different brand or work with a different brand, to be able, they're gonna have to charge a premium to cover that royalty, in other words, right? So if they're already selling Ace at $80 in Chicago, and there's only a handful of growers, it's a little more difficult to convince a a cannabis license holder there that you want them to work with you and license your brand, and so once again, if I can solve a problem for them and create a different product category that they weren't necessarily thinking about, or find a way for them to find some margin in there and add more value and incremental customers and things like that, a lot of that comes from competition though, right? So as competition heats up in places like Massachusetts, Michigan, Florida, Illinois, Las Vegas, right?
Over.
No, exactly.
Customers have choice.
It actually gives us an opportunity, right?
And there needs to be differentiation.
Oh, for sure.
Right. So it is the land and expand though. It's like you have an accessory that connoisseurs will appreciate and love and get, and then you build relationships with the same distributors that will eventually be happy to carry the flower.
Right.
And I mean, and obviously it's what gets you going in the morning, what keeps you up at night. Like it's an immense opportunity, a ton of work.
Well, here's the next phase too, is that, QR codes on here, of course. We're working with some folks, obviously, in the NFT space as well that we know. Like we want to start to add some more value with every purchase, right? So, you can start to see maybe exclusive or early access to music, working with GLC on some things. He's got an album coming out, soon, and things like that, things that Bryant's working on in the art world. Like we start to tie in the lifestyle through, different, I think, purchase activities and full on experiences in the same way that we buy shoes, in the same way that we buy music. And
you're connecting the dots of your entire adult life experience.
I think that's our ethos, which is, music, fashion, art, and travel. And you can actually see that reflected through our packaging. As you can see, even with the rolling trays, you can see our love for vinyl records, and you see us kind of redesigning like a small 45-inch record, with this. And then also, this will be released this weekend, our new packaging for our cases as well, which actually comes more shoebox inspired. So, for the sneaker lovers out there, when you go into the dispensaries, and you start to see a shoebox there, that's Cronja. So that's what we're looking to do, is really just enhance and elevate the experience in Illinois. And I think that's going to really separate us and, have those conversations with, not only the MSOs that's currently in place, but then also, the new, licensees, who's, going to be operating, and, there's going to be more opportunity for minorities and veterans as well. And I think with us, already having a stake, that leads for, really great conversation for us to have. So I think you definitely see all of that in the mix and really come full circle next year.
That's definitely the mission part of this, right? Is like, as I was telling you, is that, our goal is to share our journey along the way more and start to pull back those curtains of how you get in the industry. Like, because there's so many people that we know back in the Midwest. They're like, how do we get in? How do we take our brands that we've been building essentially, and bring them into the light, and how do we do this stuff? And we talk to people from Chicago all day trying to figure that out, and why they can't launch their brands in Illinois right now, and why they can't, and do I do it in California, and that sort of thing. So it's like we want to try to give back in that way, I think, and we're bringing people in as whatever, photographers, people that want to sell, that want to learn that the game from the ground up. I mean, this is what the same way that we all got in this, we've all delivered product, we've all collected cash, we've all done all of this.
Drove the white van.
We've all drove the white van. You got to roll the van.
You got to think about what you're doing, because there's a lot of people that deserve to have opportunity, and,
right?
And, it takes work, but there's a path, and sharing your story provides inspiration, also provides people. Maybe I shouldn't go start my own thing right now. Maybe I should just go get a job in this industry, meet some people in it, and then figure out what I want to do once I actually, I'm in it a bit more, right? But guys, I don't normally say this, but my mind has been blown, from what you guys have going on, what you're building here. I really appreciate you sharing the story here, and
thank you for having us on the platform. Indeed.
Yeah, have a great day.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.